For this pass, I'm going to do some violets for this part of the background wall. That's basically the background defining lots of the tree. I'm also going to bring in a little bit of gradual darker for this very top part as it gets close to where it meets the green part. I'll show you what I mean. But that's what I'm thinking for this pass. Let me see. I'm going to, yep, number 10. So some violets for this shape. It's going to be sort of similar to what's going on here, and I'll eventually do that for the door. But do I have any violets mixed up? Nope. I am going to clean off a space. This is fun. That's fun, you know. If I was being spontaneous, I might just say, you know, that might be a good color for to go over my. In fact, sure. Let's think on the fly here. So instead of wasting that paint that I was just gonna clean off and re-wet and wipe off, I'm gonna use it as another layer for my shadow here, because it was dark violets and browns and whatnot. Good example of how to keep thinking on the fly. I kind of want the front part of my shadow to be a little bit more of just the orangey. So I'll bring a little bit more just sort of pure Quin burnt orange. Like that. Sure. If you get good at that, you can sort of make entire paintings from just cleaning up your palette. But sometimes there's can be surprises that you're not crazy about. So that was fun. I knew I was wanting to make this darker anyways, and I just sort of realized it was made sense to use that color that I was about to clean off. Okay, so back to where I was. Where was I? I was gonna do some violets for this back side of the door. I'm okay with wiping that amount up. Violet, let's see, I'm going to mix up some ultramarine blue and some quinacridone rose. That's nice and that's definitely on the blue side. Maybe a touch more rose. That was more than a touch. Going back and forth. That's why we make those colored wheels and swatch charts and all that stuff. And start really developing an eye for just what a wide range that violet can be. For some reason it's not picking up. I'm going to go with that. So I'm just going to try to keep it a little bit lighter down here. I think I'll turn it around like this. And Yeah, I think I'll start with not too much color in my brush. So I did wash out some of the color, some of the violet that was in there, which can always be a little bit sad because that's sort of wasting color, wasting paint. So it's a little bit back and forth of being okay with wasting some paint and trying to use it wisely. You know, over these over this grass stuff here, that's going to be very shadowy because there's very little light getting in there. So I'm okay with just sort of painting over that. But let's see. There's a nice little purple blurb that came from somewhere. I'm not sure where, but I kind of like it. That was a little darker than I was wanting to go too quickly, but let's see if I can manage that. Just going to bring in a little bit of water and tip the paper in a way that I want the color to flow. Yeah, again, this is an interesting call of which way to hold the paper. These little outlines of, you know, painting around the tree don't have to be perfect. In fact, nothing has to be perfect. And in fact, nothing will be perfect. I had some yellow trying to sneak into my violet mix, which we've learned is the complement on the color wheel. I was talking about that and not thinking here. So I didn't want some yellow to sneak in with my violet here because, as we've learned, that violet complementary colors will gray each other out, dull each other out, sometimes make beautiful grays and browns, but that's not what I wanted. I'm going to get my smaller brush, get it wet with a little bit of violet, but not much, and just try to clean up that edge. Trying to be okay with overlapping the other one a little bit. Kind of makes a nice dark line. And then, like, let's see, fun chance to sort of do a little bit more negative painting here. It's an interesting thing, negative painting. It's not what our brains are used to by any means, so a lot of times you think you're doing something and then your brain says, no, actually you're doing the opposite. But I digress. I wanted to get a little bit more darker color over here. That was quite a bit more darker color. And then when I get down to where the edge meets the orangey concrete, yellowy orangey concrete, I want to do the same treatment that I did here. So I'm just going to make sure I have my small brush and mostly a little bit of creamy paint. Trying to mix up a little bit of creamy, quite creamy purple, violet, and I'm looking sideways to kind of see the shine, but I'm just going to kind of go for it here. Ooh, that was fun making a sound. Then as you can see, I'm getting that color off my brush, and then coming back in and trying to blend it with a thirsty brush idea. I can do that sort of again, as long as I make sure I'm not bringing in too much more water. Just pigment. And this is a tricky one, so kind of a tricky technique. Can certainly get even smaller brushes and try to make that a real gradual thing. But there is a little bit of a putting a little bit down, a little picking up, picking some back up. It's a good chance to sort of practice going back and forth between, for your brush, if it's putting down color or soaking it up. Let's do this side as well as that's a bit too much red. One thing when you're painting something behind another object, you want to make sure that on one side of the object, in this case a tree trunk, is going to read as being continuous with the other side. So I had a little bit too much. It was more blue over here than it was over here. And in fact, if I drop in a little bit of that same color, then I am sure to have. And I'm going to do finally a little bit of a little bit more into these the little tree holes. That one was already somewhat darker. This one was not. This part is very not exact science. And later I'm gonna come back in with suggestions of a tree branch, a couple branches, which will help that read more. And the tree's gonna need more stuff. So that's that. And like I said, for this top area here, I'm going to use I'm sort of going to wet it mostly and then kind of do that same treatment that I did down there. Because mostly it's the color and gradient and value change that I want, but I just wanted to get it a little bit darker as it gets toward the edge, because it's those meeting places where light really doesn't have much of a chance to be as a fun place to, that was not very clean, to accentuate that very fact that no light is going to be able to get there. So this is that same violet sort of mix that I was using over here, and I'm dropping it in. Small brush. It's just a mess over here. Good thing it's background, and it's just the whole thing is, the whole point of this background is to be, well, one of the points is to be dark and fuzzy and backgroundy, and keep pushing this thing forward in the viewer's eye. I'm not sure if I just didn't let that one dry because this paper is not holding the line at all, or if it's just sort of tired of me asking a little bit too much of it. And hopefully you can see that I know when I was wetting the shape I wasn't very careful, but as it kept, let me see, a little more blue, I think. Actually just a little drier too. It still might be a tad wet. I think it's okay. I want to overlap that. And I'm going to try really hard to not worry about the imperfectness of that area up there. I'll see how it dries, and I have a hunch it'll dry a little bit lighter and it'll kind of disappear, hopefully disappear into the background. I'm going to make this part even darker. Taking away a little bit of that dark, trying to even it out. Yeah. That edge will definitely not be a clean edge, which is as I've probably said 3 or 4 times now, is fine with the background. Trying to even up transition. I think this is officially fussing too much, so it's a good example of a tricky one to know when to stop. I want it a little darker as it gets closer to this edge, because that's going to keep the viewer's eye inside the painting. Help keep it that way. Yeah. I'll let it dry, see what happens. In a minute. These guys are not reading quite right because the color behind it, this needs to read with what this is. And this needs to kind of read with what it would be like, imagine, back there. Might be a little too dark. These are areas you can play with negative painting as well if you're feeling comfortable with that. Oftentimes I just sort of try to find what seems like it might be a leaf and accentuate it, either going that way or this way. That's enough. Okay.